Okay, so we're going to make this interactive. I'm going to show you a series of photos, and I want you to just say the first words that come to mind. 1 word, 3 words, a full paragraph, whatever. So anybody want to be my first guinea pig? What does this photo say to you? Beautiful. I just heard beautiful. Okay, that's a good one. Anybody else? Bad light. Oh, all right. Well, that could be the photo on the... It actually is a nice photo. It's better than it maybe is looking on the screen. That said, anybody else? I'm sorry? Chartering. Okay. Belly flop. Okay. I don't see a splash, but that's okay. Maybe it's off camera. A ghost ship. Keep that in mind. I think you saw my cue cards, Martin. No. Okay, let me go to the next one. What does this say? What do you think? Inviting? Spaceship. Yeah, I guess that does kind of look like a little mushroom top, right? Pretty? Beautiful? Too small? I like the way you think. Okay, third photo. Yay. Fun. Fun. Boring, no fun, right? Okay. Ah, I knew you'd start acting up, Martin. Okay, one more. I heard a couple ahs, and I heard romantic. Somebody over here said romantic. Second wife. Hey, happy wife, happy life, my friend. Okay, well, there was another reason for me showing you all these photos. I was watching your faces while each photo was going up, and this photo got the biggest reaction, your nonverbal communication. Photo before that one too, got a bigger reaction than this or this. There's a reason for that. I want to show you one more photo. Some of you might recognize this photo if you get the Megayacht newsletter. Hint, subscribe. This photo is what inspired this entire discussion we're about to have. I received this photo as part of an editorial package about a year ago from a yacht builder who had just delivered a brand new yacht to a client who wanted to build a boat to travel around the world with his children. The photo package, I kid you not, had at least a dozen photos of this little girl, an older sister, a mom, and a dad, individually and collectively having a great time on the boat. It stuck out of my mind for weeks, and that's why I included it in the newsletter. I wrote a whole editorial about it, and like I said, that's what inspired this entire presentation today. It stuck out in my mind because this is an anomaly in this industry, and it makes absolutely no sense that it's an anomaly, because all of us here and everybody in this industry, in our conversations with one another, in our conversations with our clients, in our conversations with our families and our friends, talk about how yachting is an amazing lifestyle. It is an amazing experience. But the messaging, visually and verbally, particularly visually, is not conveying that. You all being here is proof that you know it, and hopefully you want to change it. Our panelists feel the same way. So everybody here is going to help with ideas on how to make that happen. Daniel, I want to start with you because with your experience with Elite Traveler and from the travel industry prior to that and dealing with a lot of the ultra high net worth individuals and the companies targeting them, I think you have a pretty well-rounded perspective. You also obviously have familiarity with yachting. So from your so-called outside perspective, but also your inside perspective, why do you think that yachting as an industry is disconnected from acknowledging that this is an experience-driven lifestyle industry and conveying that in the marketing imagery?
Well, having been in the industry for 20 years, the last 20 years in travel and media, I can tell you that it's not unique to the yachting industry. That disconnect exists in other segments of luxury and other segments of various industries. If you look at advertising in general, I think people sort of put advertising into two different types of advertising, whether it's the technical type of advertising, that features products, or they have the lifestyle image type advertising. And if you think about the two different types, one really tugs on the brain and one tugs on the heart. And I think the industry, if you think about who the main people that make up the industry, it's made up of a lot of small businesses. If you set aside the Feadships and the big guys, it's made up of a lot of small businesses that were built by individual entrepreneurs and such, that they had a passion for the industry and were knowledgeable about the technical side of the industry, and that's why they got into it, and that's how they grew their businesses. Other people may have been really strong on the sales side, and they're really good salespeople, but they're not really good at marketing. And that is a specific expertise that exists. And I think if you look at yachting particularly, the industry, you'll see that many of the people stay within the industry. They go from one company to another. So from a marketing perspective, you'll see a person at one company and then they'll go to another. You don't see a lot of marketing people coming from outside the industry. And I think that is the challenge that the industry faces to some degree, that looking from outside rather than looking from within. The big brands obviously have bigger budgets. They have people who can put together big marketing plans. They can put together different, multifaceted marketing plans. They have people who can execute those plans. Smaller companies, it's really down to an individual in most of those companies, and that person usually serves multiple roles. So they're taking guidance from people above, whether it's the owner of the business or the top salesperson, and it seems to me that a lot of that product type of advertising comes as a result of coming from the top down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, makes sense. We have a couple of images that we'll pull up from some other luxury industries that are good examples of companies that changed from very product-focused marketing to experiential marketing. So when I bring up each one, can you explain the backstory and
Sure.
what happened? I believe the first one I have is Marquis Jet. Yes, here we go.
Yeah, if you think about the private jet business, it really developed after around 2001. There was a huge expansion in that category. A lot of new companies coming into the business. NetJets and Bombardier and these kind of companies existed and dominated the market. Just about all of their marketing was geared towards the business jet being a tool. And there was a lot of sensitivity around the messaging on that. None of those companies wanted to confuse the issue with lifestyle. They were really, really keen to make sure that the message came across that this is not a toy that they're playing with, because there were sensitivities on taxes and things like that and perks for CEOs. Yeah, there was a real keen interest in making sure that it was all about making sure the CEO got to more meetings and he was more productive and such. A new company came into the business called Marquis Jet, and they took a different tack on it, and they started as a result of two people coming, again, from outside the industry, a guy from liquor, spirits industry, and another fellow from sports marketing. And they really started doing research with their core customers because they knew they were going to be up against a real challenge trying to get into this market. So they started, instead of asking, well, what type of jet do you want, they started asking consumers, what is it that you're actually trying to get out of this service? And what they found from that research is that it wasn't so much about the seats or how fast the plane went. was more about these busy executives who were out on the road continuously and were spending a lot of time away from their family, and that their interest with that jet was more towards this was a tool that got them back to their family more, more efficiently, and it enabled them to get back from those 3 or 4 business meetings that they went on and get back to see their son's baseball game that day. So that was really the motivation behind that. And if you look at the imagery, it's more about emotion than it is about the jet. There's no imagery of the jet in there.
Right. Okay. And our next one is one of the major watch companies.
Again, this is another instance where if anyone's picked up a magazine, before this, I think this campaign started back in around 2005, but anytime prior to that, and even now, you can pick up any magazine, any lifestyle magazine, and it'll be chock full of watch ads. And just about all of those ads are pictures of watches. What Patek Philippe did is they hired a gentleman from outside the industry again, and he came in and took a look at it, and he said, did again research as to what people were really looking for, and he found that this $30,000 watch did the same thing that a $10 Timex did. So what is it these people are really trying to get out of this watch? One of the things they found, interestingly enough, was that people were viewing this as an heirloom, as sort of a legacy piece. And they incorporated that message into their advertising and said, the tagline on that is basically, you don't own a Patek Philippe watch, you just keep it until you hand it on to the next family member. So again, sort of continuity, it's more than a watch, it's a family, it's part of your family.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and our next one is one of my favorites. Very different ad for an airline.
Yeah, British Airways, they sort of, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Saatchi & Saatchi, but back in the 90s, they were a pretty outrageous group, advertising group, and they came up with lots of crazy campaigns. British Airways really shocked everyone when they hired Saatchi to do their advertising campaign for business class. One of the things that at the time you'd always see in the business class ads was pictures of seats. That's what the ad was. Everyone had a seat, picture of their seat, whether it reclined, whether it was wider, whether it was softer than the other one. British Airways took a different tack and said, we're going to actually talk about relaxing and getting there in a physical manner that you are relaxed and ready to do business. And that's how this business class campaign came about. And again, it was from a group that was outside the industry. They weren't an agency that handled airlines. And there was a group of small group of ad agencies that did airline ads up until then. And these guys were one of the first to break into it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and we have one more, which is a very famous jewelry company.
Yeah. David Yurman, again, it's sort of a departure. If you've got jewelry and you see pictures of jewelry after picture of jewelry after picture of jewelry, what really differentiates your product from the others? So what David Yurman did is hired a fellow to come up with a different concept as to what it was. Instead of just pictures of jewelry, he put it in lifestyle pictures. And this is one, it sort of evokes, well, what do you want to be? Do you want to be this person? Would you like to, what does this image tell you about this product? It's a luxury, etc. And they were one of the first people to feature high fashion models in their advertising. Up until then, it was, as I said, primarily pictures of jewelry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now there are a handful of yachting companies that have been doing some good jobs, not to make one company seem like it's the best compared to others, but I did pull Camper Nicholson's CNI ads, or not ads, I should say. It's a snapshot from their website. CNI is a magazine that Camper Nicholson's puts out, and they have it promoted on their website. This is a snapshot of their website. I think the covers are pretty telling. So, David, why don't you expand on that concept?
Again, it's a situation where someone from outside the industry came in and took a fresh look at the way things were being done, and took some of the ideas that they had learned from the luxury goods business and from the ad agency business, and said, you know what, this is a far more luxurious business than anything that I've worked on before, yet the imagery we have is really more technical. It's more about yachts, and it's pictures of yachts after yachts after yachts. And he said, okay, what is it that people are really trying to do when they go on when they charter a yacht? Are they more concerned with how many knots the yacht goes, or how many toys and what they're going to do with those toys? And that image you had before is a perfect example of that. Now, I didn't catch whether that was someone's personal photography of their family.
That was a photo shoot. Yeah, that was a photo shoot for a charter yacht, actually. Yeah.
Because that could have been pictures of someone's family,
right,
the way you saw it, and that tells you what the motivation of that person is for that trip. It's not about looking fancy in Monaco. It's about spending time with the family and getting the most out of that time.
Right. And we're going to come back to the idea in a couple of minutes, too. I want to make sure that I cover a few other topics with you. We were talking about big brands and small brands, and everybody in this room, I think it's safe to say, is a small business owner, or at least works for a small business. And a lot of times, small business owners feel it's unfair to expect them to be able to accomplish the same things that a David Yurman can do or a British Airways can do, because they sit there and say, well, these are huge companies with huge budgets. Is there a counter argument to that?
Yeah, I'd say that you can't compete with those big brands. You're right. You don't have the resources and you don't have the expertise in all of those areas, but you also don't need the exposure that some of those bigger brands have. The most important thing that I always say to people in this industry is it's about buying your advertising and reaching the right people. That's the real key in this business, is targeting people who are interested in your product and can afford your product. And so often I've seen in my days with Elite Traveler and before, where people place advertising in places that it looks good, but it's not where their customers are. So there's a disconnect between where they're spending their money and what's generating business for them. The advantages smaller companies have is that fact that they're small, that they're nimble, that they're able to make quick decisions. If you try and go to LVMH, for instance, and get a decision made in a day to do a cocktail party that evening, you're going to have a lot of challenges compared to having a small company, who's, the boss is there and he's able to make the decisions.
Although somehow I think Farouk, you might be able to pull a few strings.
Yeah, he probably can.
He doesn't know LVMH.
Yeah.
And then one last question for you, Daniel. For anybody here who might be seeking to expand their in-house marketing team, or even perhaps hire an agency, switch agencies even, how can they better evaluate the proper partner for them in terms of injecting this kind of life into their luxury lifestyle marketing?
I think the key is to be open-minded and to really be honest with yourself as a business as to what it is you're looking to do. Often businesses want to hire someone. They think they want to hire someone who's going to change things. The person comes in, they suggest the changes that need to be made, but the people aren't really willing to make the changes. So there's the need to be honest about what it is you're trying to achieve and the strategies that are going to be necessary to make those changes. There's also, you know, from a small company standpoint, really investing in the people that you have in those positions now. Doesn't always mean you have to go outside the industry and find someone with different experience. Sometimes that's not an option. Often it means investing in the people you have, whether it be sending them to seminars, including them in groups on LinkedIn. You know, some of the groups on there that are the company I'm forming now has a group called Selling to the Super Rich. It's a free group on LinkedIn, but it gives you really interesting insights into you know, how to reach affluent people and what, you know, triggers them. Diane's a member of the group. It's an easy way to get insights into the luxury industry, and there are lots of other things along those lines.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, it is a free group, and I really do encourage people here to look for it on LinkedIn because it's phenomenal, the conversations and sharing of information that's been going on. Daniel, thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, I want to bring you in next because I think it's a perfect segue from the concept to someone who helps execute those concepts. We're talking a lot about imagery. Photography is imagery. Good photography does not begin or end with somebody coming to you and saying, shoot my boat, or shoot my marina, or shoot my product. There's art direction involved in that. Some people here may know what art direction is all about, some others may not. So for their benefit, can you describe what art direction is all about and what role an art director plays and should play in the creation of a campaign and a photo shoot?
Sure. Well, whether you've got a big account or a small account, you've still got a creative problem you're trying to solve visually. And if you don't approach it as a team effort, then you're not getting as much out of it as you could. A large agency will have a creative director, a group head director, and then right down to art directors who are going to be working with a concept and then nailing it down, getting it approved, putting a pre-production meeting together, figuring out a creative team to shoot it. But that doesn't usually happen in most of the yachting situations because it's really bigger budget stuff. However, anybody that's doing advertising, if you're buying print, you're committing money to space. And that money should be well spent, and can be, even on a low budget. Lower budget, certainly, than these big companies. You should be teamed up with graphic designers somewhere, and not someone just saying, well, we've got this boat to shoot today, so hire Jim Raycroft or Billy Black or any number of photographers out there that are concentrated in this field. They're missing the boat if they don't have a team understanding why we're going to shoot that boat. What is it about this particular project that they're trying to convey? A shot for a brokerage ad would be very different than something you might want to put out there for a charter. So the more communication there is through the whole chain, the better. Art direction is important because somebody's got to decide what you're going to shoot. And a lot of times it falls on the photographer. You get there and you figure it out. And we do understand the business a bit, but not like the marketing people do and what they're trying to achieve with that product. So if you can involve your graphic designer in that, somebody's creative person that you work with regularly, even if they're not on staff, but just a freelancer, as part of your team, you're going to be ahead of the game when you're building these images that are supposed to sell these products and services.
Now, in a perfect world, everybody here will have the nice big budgets where they can hire maybe a full-time or freelance art director. It's the end of March. Budgets have been set for a while, and like you just said, this is the yachting industry. There's not usually a lot of money committed to marketing. The Plan B solution, perhaps, sounds like having someone like you serve as the art director. So how would you tackle that subject? Can you walk us through how you work through that process with the client?
Yeah, well, the guy up here without the jacket on, you know, it's like, we just to hit the ground running and run at something and start clicking away doesn't usually get you where you want to be. If you don't have a concept to begin with, then you're just grabbing pictures. So even a situation with a small budget can sit there and say, you got to know what you're trying to accomplish. And from that, you do a pre-production situation meeting where everybody knows what you're trying to do. This is going to drive the budget probably up from the original idea. But at that point, you can sit there and figure out what is it you need to accomplish? What's that going to cost? How can we be creative about not overspending to produce it? Do we need models? If we do, how many? Where are we going to get them? And by having a good pre-production session to start with, you're going to answer a lot of these questions. And that's going to maybe bring a little reality into your idea about what a budget should be or needs to be. And if you need to cut it back from there, then you need to start figuring about what you're going to eliminate, because you can't get it all if you're not willing to spend for it all, or can't, whatever the reason. But it's important to keep in mind that photography for these products is a library that you're building. The idea that it probably will serve more than just one shot. And if you build a good library, it'll be there for other purposes. So it's worth thinking about that as an investment, and not just let's get a photographer out there and shoot something.
Good point. I know sometimes you run into issues when you arrive at a boat, for example, to do a shoot, where the captain isn't fully informed and had no idea that 8 people were arriving, or there's also the other end of the spectrum where there's a lack of respect coming from the captain and therefore trickling down to the crew to allow you all to do what you need to do. There are also sometimes issues with the owner, who might be the one who had initially commissioned the shoot, and once he finds out that there are models involved, says, well, I don't need to pay for models, I'll just have my friends sit in the hot tub and sit on the lounges, and that'll be fine. How do those end up becoming headaches for everybody here, and how do we avoid those headaches in the first place?
Good pre-production meeting, or 2 or 3, whatever it takes, so that everybody's on the same page as to what they're trying to accomplish. We have run into situations like that. We've actually got on board a boat, and the crew had no idea we were coming, and they just come off 2 weeks with the owner, and they're beat. And it's not that I'm saying it's a respect the photographer. It's a respect for what you're doing and the money you're spending and the value that you're putting on the images you're creating, which are going to make up your marketing effort, your advertising. So the pre-production, I just can't stress it enough. You sit down with whoever's going to run the job. The owner may be involved, but usually it's just the captain and possibly the management company. Everybody's clear. If the captain's on board with this and he wants to do this shoot and he sees the value, let's say for a charter brochure, and he's positive, that's going to filter down to the crew. When the photo team hits the boat, everybody is going to be enthusiastic. You're going to get a lot accomplished in the time you have, and it's never enough time. And you're going to walk away with some good images. If the captain's not on board with it, or the owner is doesn't really care, and they'll cancel the shoot the day before because they decided to stay an extra day, it disrupts the whole process. And the crew can't be expected to jump through hoops with dealing with on a charter and then having the boat turned around in a day and looking photo ready for a shoot. It has to be realistic in the timing. So the respect comes into them respecting what it is they're asking for and what they want and what they need to use it for. How good do you want this photography to be? I mean, if you approach it in a half-assed way, that's what you're going to end up with to a great extent. And the media buy is the media buy, but what images are you throwing up there? So the captain's on board, the crew will be on board, and everybody's going to have a good day. If not, then you have to pick another time to do it when he's got more time. And they need to listen to the captain, too, and not just be forced into, well, we have these 2 days in St. Martin, so that's when it has to be. But you've heard all the arguments. I mean, it's like you just keep trying to say, look, this is important for your marketing, not just today. It could be in magazine articles. It could be in all kinds of places. These photos have legs if you approach it that way.
Mm-hmm. And then when you were speaking before about the pre-planning meeting and how oftentimes that raises the budget from the initial expected budget, sticker shock, I'm sure, sets in for some people. and they come back to you and say, well, can't we do this any cheaper? How do you get them to realize that asking that question means compromise?
Well,
in a bad way, because
yeah.
compromise can be good, but compromise in this case is bad.
Well, it depends on, again, what they want. If you're trying to do a lifestyle shoot and you want to have a family out there, and as you've demonstrated very well here, it creates energy and enthusiasm when you see these kids running around having a great time. And it says a lot more about the jet charter or the boat charter when you've got the family people aspect involved in it. So we've run into situations where owners have wanted to save money on professional models by bringing their friends along. If the friends are willing to put up with me telling them what to do for 2 days, that's great, but you know, I kind of don't think it is. So we try to bring that to have them understand that their friends aren't, anybody who's done any modeling knows it's not easy. It's the last thing in the world you want to do. It's difficult to do it well. And your friends, you're not doing them a favor by asking them to do that. So now it's like, well, do you want to not have models? That if you're trying to show lifestyle, how are you going to do that? So there's some reality that comes into how do we do this? Maybe you find a good professional couple and somebody's got kids that can work in that. Kids are a little different, a little easier to deal with. But if you cut it out completely, you're just cutting yourself short. I mean, you're going to fly the crew out there, you're going to rent the helicopter, you're going to do all this stuff. And if you cut it back because you don't want to spend $600 to $1,000 a day per model in their travel, well, when you look at the overall budget for that shoot, plus the collateral materials that are going to be built, and the media buy, and everything that's going to go into this, it's not much. It's change. And you're not going to get a professional result without having a professional team. If you could do that, everybody'd do it. It doesn't happen.
And realistically, too, no offense to any owners, but $600 to $1,000 is a lot less than they've paid for some pillows on their boats.
Oh, you can spend more than that for a yard of material for the throw pillow on your couch, right? So it's like, do you believe in creating these pictures? And that all gets back to this pre-production. If you could sit down with the people involved and have a meeting and kick the stuff around, all the concerns and the worries, and get that stuff on the table and figure out what you're going to do and why you're doing it, you're going to be so far ahead of the game. I've just found a lot of yacht companies don't seem to have time for that, or someone within the company to run it that way. So the photographer ends up trying to put this stuff together quite often.
I've got a photo from a photo shoot that you and I had talked about that I just loved the idea of it when you described it, and I loved the photo even more when I saw it. There we go. I think this photo just speaks volumes about what the experience is all about. So can you tell everybody, you know, kind of what happened and in particular what was so special about this kid and how I think really he makes the whole photo what it is?
Yeah, this was on a project, on a Burgess boat, Bahamas, a couple of weeks ago. And they had professional models, but the kids were just kids that they brought along. But they were great kids. And after, you know, into it for a while with the kids, and I'm comfortable working in that situation and make them comfortable. You know, we had a good rapport going. So they'd listen and they'd do what you ask them to do. And you just sort of find these little moments will come out. We're trying to show the jacuzzi. And we don't want it to just be adults with drinks around the jacuzzi, so we tossed the kids in there. There's several different things that happened with this scenario of the jacuzzi, but this was my favorite out of it because I think it talks about family. He's just sort of looking back in his own world, loving this, and or at least that's what it said to me. So I don't really care what they're doing in the background. You know, they're there and all that, but he's having a great time.
Yeah, he gets your attention, and he's the first thing you see, I think, in this photo. Then you say, oh yeah, by the way, there's mom and dad and the sister.
No, he's not a professional model. He was the son of one of the people aboard that one of the captain's friends had brought their child. And if you can appreciate what it means to bring people into these situations on these big yachts and spring for the extra money. I think it just so pays off to what you're trying to accomplish with marketing and lifestyle.
Yeah, I agree. Jim, I'm going to come back to you in a couple minutes when we do a little live brainstorming between you and Ken. Farouk, I want to bring you in next because Feadship has been doing some pretty interesting things, and I think it really starts with your title. I wanted to bring this up because it's something very different for the yachting industry. Brand and Marketing Director. Why did Feadship feel it was important from a client standpoint to convey brand very publicly, and how does that impact what you do marketing-wise?
Well, interestingly enough, Martin was already showcasing marketing and branding in his 10 questions. And I didn't want to raise my hand, but the thing is that maybe to focus on it a little bit more, I wrote down a few things when Martin was giving his presentation. Marketing, on the one hand, is focusing on activities for promotion and distribution of products and services. Branding, however, and most of the time these two are very, they're always used as one and the same thing. Branding is about identity management, market value, and competitive strength, being part of a company asset. So a brand is value, and value means extra profit in terms of turnover and what you end up with. Mm-hmm. So Feadship has chosen to separate the two and to put more emphasis on branding, and this is something that has been brought in by LVMH that you talked about earlier. And the thing that we do is, what we have done is first go back to the basis of everything. What is your identity? That's what Martin also started with. So we defined our core DNA. And after we defined our core DNA, we defined our codes. And the codes are the things that you are recognized with. So if you have a logo, and if you have a picture, if you have photography, how do you bring across that is identified as a Feadship picture? So if I take away the logo, would you still recognize it as being a Feadship? And that is what branding is all about. And if you try to do that through the line, and what I mean with that is that it's not only about advertising. It's not only, I believe in 360 degrees marketing. So events, advertising, online marketing, and so on. All of those touch points are instruments to bring across a certain message. But you have to start with that message. And that message has to come back each and every time, and it has to be very clear. And it is not only for the outside world. You have to immerse your own company, your own colleagues, your own employees in that whole experience. Just to give you an example, we're doing, for instance, advertising, and we're trying to bring across a message. We define two things for our campaign: pure custom creation and perfect craftsmanship. Those two elements are the basis for our total campaign. Based upon that, we want to become a love brand. Okay? It sounds cocky, but it's part of our total campaign. So when we're doing things, highlighting what we're doing with our advertising, we want to also make people experience what Feadship stands for. In Monaco, we started using LED technology, for instance, to highlight ourselves a little bit better. In Fort Lauderdale, we went a little bit further than that. We created the House of Feadship, and literally immersing potential relations and clients in the Feadship experience, and to inspire people. In Dubai, we've gone even further than that. We adapted ourselves to doing what the customers expect from us there. And I don't agree with bringing in outsiders in the industry. Of course it's good, and it's for the creative process it's good. but you have to be careful not to become a copycat of a template for retail marketing being executed on what we do. Because, you know, in the end, we're building the most expensive, useless products in the world. So it's all about emotion. And it's not about ration. And it's so irrational. So you have to be able to transform yourself into what the client wants. And it's not only the client. You have to define who your target groups are that you want to communicate with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a mixture of marketing and branding. And branding elevates your brand into becoming an asset. That's basically what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, do I have, here we go. We have 2 ads from Feadship's recent campaigns. Why don't you describe the idea behind the ads?
Well, first of all, we wanted to, we went back to the core of what we wanted to express. This is part of a campaign, and we wanted to express, again, pure custom creation and perfect craftsmanship. Pure custom creation, what is that? If we talk about custom yacht building, all the yacht builders build custom. Custom is custom because you can customize. It's a debatable word. So we defined the element of pure custom creation by calling it uniquity. And this is part of advertising campaign where we highlight unique elements on a yacht without showing a helicopter shot of a yacht with a tagline like everybody's doing. Without offending anybody, by the way. So this was the first one. You can show, do you have the second?
Yeah, and the second one. I don't know if you all can read that. The bottom line up there says this is uniquity. That's what he was just talking about. And here's the second one.
Uniquity is an existing word, by the way. According to the Oxford Dictionary, it means the state of being unique. Mm-hmm. And we build custom, 100%, starting with a blank page. And we wanted to bring that across without any conflict of messaging with all the other core brands that there are out there. This is the second one, and we chose to tell little stories each and every time. This is a highlight of a yacht that we recently delivered that has an ocean gallery. It's as simple as that, and we wanted to showcase the uniquity of that as part of a total dream. If you're a potential owner, imagine yourself having billions, and you lost the ability to fantasize. You lost the ability to dream. Basically, that's why they come to us as an industry, to build their fantasy, to co-create with us. So show them the possibilities and try to trigger them. And basically, one of our main objectives is also to be disruptive. Not just to be disruptive, but to separate ourselves from all the others.
Mm-hmm. I know we have 2 videos as well that tap into what you were saying about the Feadship DNA. Is Caitlin? Do you guys have the videos? No? Oh, no. Yeah, the PowerPoint in the video, for whatever reason, was not playing well. So I think Caitlin was going to try to maybe. Oh, did I just do that? One moment, please.
Yes, maybe while she's looking for the videos. We chose to tell the story using several touch points of marketing, using instruments like video, using instruments like advertising, online, and so on, to tell the story. So to bring across the message of what Feadship stands for, we made little compilations of movies, short storytelling movies, about the DNA of Feadship. Mm-hmm. And we created one challenge basically, and that is not to show a yacht. in any of the cases, because that doesn't tell the story in the way that it's supposed to.
Oh, okay. Technical difficulties. Sorry, everybody. Unfortunately, yeah, very long, involved story. Apologies. So sorry about that. But maybe you can describe a little bit about the video. I don't know.
Yeah, they're
like
they're
you said.
beautiful. You know, they're so good.
But well, I think one of the
You should have seen them.
We can send
one
them
of the
out.
good things I think that you just pointed out is
Diane,
that
we can send them out afterwards.
Okay, yeah, that would
Yeah,
be great.
well,
yeah, everybody can get it afterwards. But
It's
the fact that you
it's-
didn't show a yacht in either video, I think, is what's
Yeah.
very telling. It's
well,
you
it
know,
was focusing on the DNA of Feadship, and that is the family heritage, and that we truly understand what the owner stands for.
Are they on the web?
No, not these ones. So it's kind of hard to explain. When you see them, you immediately understand what they stand for. And it doesn't come across the same if I start to explain it. No problem.
But we'll make sure everybody gets access to them. They're very creative in the sense of not showing a yacht at all. And it's proof that there is a way to still convey what you are all about without always showing the same bow going left, bow going right over and over again.
Yes, Diane, I do want to make one remark about, because you're trying to explain and to explore basically what lifestyle is. Everybody has this stereotype vision of what lifestyle is. It's people having fun and people enjoying pleasure on a yacht and so on. And of course we're doing it for that. We're using those kind of images and videos for our charter company. Experience and lifestyle could be portrayed in a totally different manner. I see this as part of a lifestyle campaign. The videos focusing on the craftsmanship and the family heritage is also part of that lifestyle campaign. So it doesn't necessarily have to be all about children enjoying themselves in a swimming pool or around the yacht. Because if you look at what all the brokers, for instance, are doing, they're already covering parts of that. And there are a few very good examples. Wyco is doing a great job, for instance, in how they profile themselves and bring across that message in that way, in that manner. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only route that you could go for.
Right. One more question for you. A big problem, so to speak, that a lot of shipyards are facing, and therefore a lot of us in the media are facing as well, is the issue of confidentiality. Increasingly, owners want more and more confidentiality, which keeps you from revealing a lot of information about very creative things that are being done, and therefore can hinder the ability to continue to get a creative message out. How can we as an industry address that, yet still let new clients know that we are being creative and that we get that this is experiential?
First of all, you have to respect what the owner wants. It's as simple as that. But it also challenges us to be more creative. And what it does, the best way to promote, for instance, we are 9 out of the 10 yachts that we deliver, we're not allowed to say anything about them. We've delivered several very, very high-profile yachts, from Venus to Madame Gou to Sea Owl to Savannah recently. This is related to that. So you simply have to respect that. But one of the best marketing tools that you have are the things that you're not allowed to talk about, because they're going to appear anyway. And you have to be clever how to manage that, how to do that. So there are means, especially social media nowadays. As soon as a yacht enters the public domain, you have tools to bring across that message without you doing it. Don't tell our owners.
This is true. Very good point. Farouk, thank you. Thank you very much. Ken, I want to bring you in now for a little live brainstorming. We've talked a lot about yachts and putting people on yachts, in photos. Many of you we know are representatives of straightforward paint companies, fender companies, gear companies. You know, you can't just stick a person next to a can of paint or a fender or an anchor. It's just not going to work. So there are still creative ways to inject a little life into what you're doing and get that point across. So Ken, I know you're big on the concept of cognitive dissonance. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, and then maybe you, Jim, you can jump in with an idea or two on how maybe you've achieved it with some clients, or how it can possibly even be achieved by some of the companies here.
Okay, well, like a number of the people in the room, I'm not selling a boat. I'm trying to sell some paint. And as we know, paint is really interesting. It's a bit like insurance. Everybody loves talking about it, almost as exciting as accountancy services. So it's a real challenge for us to actually market ourselves. We can do it face-to-face. It works really well over a beer or a coffee. It seems to be a product that lives well in the spoken medium, but advertising, whether it's digital or print, leaving aside YouTube that Julie tells us all about, it isn't a spoken medium. It's images and it's words and so on. And so therefore we have a real challenge. And our first challenge for anything is to stop you moving on. Job number one of every advert and every image that you put up on the internet and so on is to stop people moving on. You don't want them to turn the page. You don't want them to click through to something else. You want them to stop, because you want them to stop and go, oh, look, there's the Awlgrip logo. And that actually, in some cases, the ad has done its job if it does that. It would be great if you stayed a little bit longer and actually read something or noticed that there was a product. Ah, yes, they make a product. And then finally, the third level of the advert is to say, I must go and do something, like buy it. So you've got these three levels that the ad has to work on, but the very first thing it has to do is to stop you moving on. And another boat, another white boat on a blue background, very, very striking imagery there, Martin, and Farouk said the same thing. It's just a page turner. Nobody wants to do it, because we all know what a boat looks like. And the fact that it's clothed in the paint is irrelevant, because it's just another boat. So we have to find a way to stop you turning the page, and this is where the cognitive dissonance comes in. It's cognitive dissonance is when you put images together that don't make sense. You look at it and you go, what? And there was a really good one I saw where there was reading through a magazine, turning the pages, and then it was a woman had her head down the toilet. It was an advert for stabilizers. Really good. But it made me stop. And to this day, I still remember it. So it did its job. And it's just like, why is there a woman with her head down the toilet in this magazine that's supposed to be about boats? And it makes you stop. And that's what cognitive dissonance is. It's the unexpected, the things that don't fit together. Often it's a juxtaposition of things that really don't match, or it's just that you weren't expecting to see that image in this publication. And so we have been trying that out in a variety of different ways, not just with the Awlgrip brand, but also with the Interlux brand, because, you know, underwater paint is even less exciting than shiny paint. So that's our challenge, is to get people to not turn the page. Mr. Photographer, Mr. Art Director.
Yeah, we have something in common, because it's often said shooting interiors is about as exciting as watching paint dry, so there we are.
Fortunately, we have machines that do that for us.
So you don't even have to be there when it does.
No.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I think it all begins with trying to, the company understanding what it is they're trying to do, stopping somebody on the page. You are not going to do that with just another, I don't care what boat it is anymore. So finding an aspect of the product that you can play with, a detail even, that you can play, what is that, you know? And, oh, whatever. Yeah. Something that shows an aspect of quality, something that shows an aspect of durability, whatever it is you're trying to say, trying to introduce that piece into the image, you know, is a good start. But
yeah. Well, I like Martin's question, because he said, you know, what do you do? Well, we make paint for boats. That's the question that when you go through immigration, what are you here for? I'm here for a boat show. What do you do? Well, we make paint for boats. Okay. That's what we do, but that's not who we are. And we went back and thought about it ourselves. We did the brand strategy thing, Martin. few years ago. And along the way, we discovered that Rolls-Royce, not the cars, but the engines, had said, we don't make engines. Well, of course they make engines, but that's not what they do. What they do is they deliver thrust on demand. They redefine their entire business. So parts, servicing, training, all the things that are not making an engine are going together to deliver thrust on demand. So Jim asked us yesterday, he said, what is your one word? Well, our word is beautification. So we did a full brand strategy analysis, and you know, there is this whole thing about paint is it's just paint until it goes wrong. So that's a challenge for us. But at the end of the day, our customers, and we'll talk about them in a little bit more detail because that's going to feed into who we're trying to put this image in front of. Our customers want to believe in our product. We had this thing that we call a circle of trust. It starts with the owner. He wants to believe that his paint boat's going to look good. The applicator who's going to use it, he wants to believe that he's going to be able to put it on and it's going to work. The yard who's contracting in with the applicator, they want to believe that the thing is going to go out the door and they're not going to have warranty problems. And the captain wants to believe that his crew isn't going to be spending all their time trying to make the paint look good because it didn't look good in the first place. So they all want to believe in it, but they believe in different things. So we've got these multiple stakeholders, and our challenge certainly is that we can't really package all that into one. At least we think it's a bit challenging. But we really do need the applicator and the yard and the captain in our circle of trust. They're our B2B part of the business, and the owner is the B2C part of our business. And so we think that we can probably tease it apart and say, okay, we're going to advertise in Martin's magazine because that speaks to the industry, and we're going to be putting an advert in there that is going to reach to these guys and say, you can trust us, we have a product that's going to do the job you need it to do. So there's a very quick brief.
Okay.
And
So
Ken, just
building-
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
No, I was just going to say, it's like you have 4 different groups you're selling to in a way, and you may be able to build a series that it all locks together and continues to put the logo, the brand out there, but with slightly different messages to these 4 different groups, and create a really interesting series of people things with that, because it's the people that I'm hearing you say you need to build the trust with. So these could all be people ads in a way, with different aspects of concern for the product. It could be an interesting assignment to you guys to figure out.
Yeah, our sister brand Interlux just recently did that. They found people in some boatyards, and they kind of did a good job, in my humble opinion, and not such a good job. But they had the people, and they had a statement, and what the paint meant to them. But they had the big can of paint there as well, because for some reason our marketing people insist on having a big can of paint in the advert. Now, in Awlgrip adverts, we don't have the can of paint.
Right.
We have an image. And sometimes we play games with the image. We screw right into a picture so that you can't really tell what it is. So we want to make you look a little deeper to try and work out which bit of a boat it is. This is almost like a little the covers of Yacht Report, when they were the Yacht Report, used to be like that. They had these really close-in images. So we stole the idea of Martin. But it kind of worked quite well. But I think you're right on the money there with the people bit. We want to put the customer that we're trying to speak to into the ad.
Yeah, but not necessarily holding a campaign. I
No.
mean, it's not about that. But where they're coming from and their individual concerns, they're all legitimate, but they're different.
Absolutely.
It would be different, even different publications you could be in to hit those people.
Well, yeah, because we can hit the crew with a number of crew publications. Triton does a good job. Give them a plug as well. Crew Report, obviously. We won't mention the others because they're not here. Is that right? But yeah, so we can target. The thing is that as I said, that one of the challenges for us is that it's not interesting until it goes wrong. This is what leads us to this trust conclusion. And I'm sure there's plenty of shipyards that tell us where we get it wrong. And they forget about all the times it goes well because you don't think about them. You focus on problems. And we kind of need to create something that will give us a positive story but still addresses the concern that lies behind why there's a trust issue. There's not a trust issue, but we want people to believe and trust that it will work. So we've got to convey that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and can put some people in it. Is there anything else you think we can kind of focus on that might
Well,
convey that?
in the stopping them on the page, you could do, I mean, there are people pictures and there are people pictures. I mean, that you can have much more of an interesting portrait of this series of people, series of portraits, for instance, one way. So it's not just some flat-lit thing of a person there. It's different for the publications. So, and your logo's in there, and almost testimonial type. But the portraits themselves would really help stop somebody on a page if they're shot in a very dramatic, interesting way.
Would we be able to use it as a series of maybe half-page or quarter pages that we run sequentially in a magazine, so you get each of the people you're talking about or reflecting in the image, rather than doing full-page ads?
Well, yeah, because a portrait is it's not something that's got these tiny details, and you need a full page or a spread to see, you know, what's going on. That'll work. It'd still pay off in a half page, or even a quarter page, I think. Once you've got, maybe they come out the larger versions first, and then you can do that.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Just to involve ourselves instead of sitting here.
It's too exciting over here, isn't it?
You have to be very careful in trying to do things differently. I love doing things differently, and I love to be disruptive, but it has to be functional. One of the best videos, part of a promotional campaign I've ever seen, is what Mercedes has done some time ago. I don't know if you know the video. They showed a chicken, literally a chicken, and they were playing around with it, with a musical theme underneath it, and they were going like this. And what a chicken has, as part of its, how do we call it, behavior, physical behavior, the head is always positioned straight and without moving. So when you move the body, the head is always like that. So you see the video, when they're moving around the chicken all over, and the head is like this all the time. And you think, what is this? And at the end, it's about that Mercedes is as stable as possible with the stabilizers that are underneath the car. That was the whole ad. You have to see it. It's really, really magnificent. So it has to be functional to the message that you're sending out. If you're going to do things just to do things differently, it might backfire on you if you want to be taken seriously.
One of the ads that our sister company Interlux did, it's bottom paint guys, so it's even more exciting. They were wanting to emphasize the fact that a particular anti-fouling product had multi-seasonal capability, so that's the function. And they got a shot set up where there were 3 boats on the hard standing in the winter, being worked on by their owners who were painting the bottoms of the boats. And then there was an empty cradle with no boat in it. And there was just a bit of text that was floating over the image which said, this owner used Micron Extra last year.
Interesting.
And so for one, it's like a weird image. It wasn't quite a normal image. I mean, yeah, there were boats in it, but it was a little bit different. But it's really trying to convey the function. One of the biggest problems we have, and I don't know if you've experienced it at Feadship, is that everybody in the company thinks they know how to do an ad, especially the sales guys. The sales guys want the ad to have in big letters, buy this product, it's good. And then they want another advert to have the other product in it and say, buy this other product, it's also good. Well, we have quite a lot of products. We would need dozens of adverts to have individual product adverts, and with our spend, and as we said, marketing spend in this area is quite low, we would produce all those lovely adverts and then print each one of those adverts. No, Martin. We'd just print each advert probably once. You wouldn't get the repetition. And one of the things that we like is repetition, and we like to leverage what we've produced in an advert. We like to leverage it on the electronic media, but we also like to take the image into our events. So we have pull-up banners outside, and then we need to take the image to there, then we need to take it to the West Palm Beach Boat Show, and we need to have that imagery at the boat show. We need to get those repetitions. So, Mr. Photographer, with our portrait adverts, what do we need to bear in mind as we're starting to plan this project with these portraits and these images to think it's not just going to work on the page as a quarter-page ad, but it's also going to work 6 feet tall at a boat show or just outside on the pull-up banner.
The missing link here is that art director that we don't have, our creative director, who's working on these concepts, so the photographer can try to execute them in line with how it's being planned out. I mean, you also, another aspect of your product is color.
Yes.
A range of color, and playing with that. Different ways of playing with that might come up with an
Guys,
interesting
sorry,
series.
not to interrupt, but I want to make sure we have time for Q&A because we're running towards the end of the program. So maybe this conversation can continue during the cocktail hour following this presentation. And anybody else who here is a product company, please feel free to pick their brains. I want to make sure we get to Q&A. So does anybody have any questions for our panelists? No. Oh, good. We have a question over here.
Thanks, Diane. Ian Byrne, Yacht Captains Association. Interesting to note the shift from the technical side of yachting to the experiential side of yachting. You know, the days of the big pictures, the flash vessels, the toys, and all that sort of thing, and moving towards the more lifestyle-related type marketing, I think, is an interesting trend. The question, or the comment I have, and the question is, where in all this mix does the imagery of the service excellence come out? Because I think at the end of the day, it's all about the service excellence that people are seeking, and through that experience on board that perhaps the industry needs to portray or needs to give the example. For example, I can't see in any of the imagery where any of the crew necessarily are involved in that lifestyle experience support. Perhaps a crew member showing a young person a new skill or how to, operate a craft or something like that. Is there room for this more participatory type of marketing to occur that actually shows the excellence of the service that's being provided on board for these people to actually show the world that that's what part of the yachting experience is about?
Anybody want to tackle that?
Well, it's a very important remark and very valid also. So next time you need to invite a yacht management company to sit next to us, because I think you have to. It's kind of, it would be come across as strange if Feadship suddenly start to showcasing that, because it's not part of the service that we deliver. That end of the industry. It's the next stage, of course. But I do absolutely underline what you're saying. It's part of the whole experience this industry is all about, and crew professionalism is also part of that.
It's huge, yeah. The crew aspect of
Yeah.
of the charter is enormous. So, interrupt
Diane,
this
did you
thing.
have a comment? Yeah, you're on, I think. Yeah, on screen.
From the conversations I've had with people in the industry, it's a huge part of why people do charters, obviously, is they will go year after year to a specific yacht because of a crew, or the crew changes to a different yacht, they'll move to that yacht. So, perhaps on the charter side, there's a way to bring things into that side, but I think what Farouk was saying on the building side, it's a little bit of a different message.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Can I do one quickly? Really to the whole panel, it's a conundrum, let's call it. Why are there so many yacht media channels when we're such a small, outwardly focused industry at the moment?
That's the million-dollar question.
Define yacht media channels.
Well, all the magazines, all the websites, everything that is out there at the moment that is serving the marketing needs of these clients. Yeah. There seems to just be a plethora of repetition in media channeling, which is, I think, a confusing landscape for most clients. Any comments?
I don't know if this is necessarily a unique problem to yachting. I've seen it in other media for sure. Theory there are people who have observed what's going on, particularly the, you know, the amount of money that is spent on yachts, and perhaps feel that they should get a piece of the pie, and that's why they jump in. Not necessarily the most altruistic reasoning. And also, some people just don't have the right business plan either. They say, oh, no, we can run pictures of boats and we can do stories. Well, when you look at the stories, they're not really stories. So, and in my experience outside of yachting, I have seen magazines that have done that and websites that have done that have gone out of business within a number of years because they put themselves in too deep of a hole to continue. So, no way to predict if that'll happen with some of the magazines, but
I've got an answer for you, Martin. I think one of the reasons is it was that old adage that, you know, only half your advertising is working for you. Trouble is you don't know which half it is. And so people spend widely in order to hit something. And I think the reason that that happens is that people don't do a proper diligent job of analyzing where they're winning. They, you know, again, with Indolux, because I used to be the VP of marketing in Indolux, so I have some old stories. Don't want to give away anything current. But we did an exercise. We looked at all the magazines. We demanded from the magazines their reader demographics. Not their reader demographics, but actually the boat demographics of their readers. So we wanted to know how many 20 to 30s, 30 to 40s, 40 to 50s, and we calculated the surface area of the bottom of the boats, right down to the thousands of square feet reached by each magazine. And then we looked at their ad rate and we worked out the dollars per square foot for all the magazines. And then we put our money with boating instead of yachting. And people said, why are you doing it with that, you know, cheesy magazine? Because it reaches more boat bottoms. It's better value in getting where we want to get to, which is to put that particular product in front of people who have boat bottoms. You know, we wouldn't put it in Trailer Sailor magazine because they don't paint the bottom of the boat. So you've got to understand where you're targeting rather better, I think, than a lot of people do. People are just putting stuff out there. That's the point you made now. They're just putting it out there and hoping something works. Well, we don't have enough money to do that. You know, we'd have to charge a lot more for the paint, and everybody says it's too expensive already. So we have to be very parsimonious and try and work out where we get best value. And as I said before, we pick certain publications because they give us B2B. We pick other publications, they give us B2C, and we put different adverts or even different products or even different brands into the different publications to target them in. But all of that does take a lot of time and planning. And just like we were saying, you need an art director to spend time in a pre-production meeting, you need to do some pre-work before to understand who is your target at the moment, where you're going to find them, what channel is going to reach them. There's an awful lot of data available, but people seem to just go with the magazine they like reading.
Can I say it more bluntly?
certainly.
We're simply not professional enough as an industry.
Yep.
We're creating our own problem. We're behaving like a cottage industry, like a caravan, going all over the world from one show to the other. A lot of, look at events, for instance, as an example. There are a lot of pop-ups of boat shows everywhere around the world, and each and every time you see companies participating. Why? It doesn't help, because if you think that the market is growing with that pace, and we have an enormous volume of clients, quantities, and you would think that's logical. It's not. The number of shows compared to the number of clients and the growth in each is absolutely not in balance with each other. So why are we doing that? We're trying to explore. Instead of consolidating and creating volume together and basically forcing the client to come to that one platform, no, we're doing the opposite. We're spending 5 times what we should spend just because we're fragmenting the market. That happens with events, that happens with publications, media, magazines, online media, everything. So we are creating our own problem, and it's in our industry only. Mm-hmm. And this has everything to do with the fact that we're not investing. Just a question, because you're asking the public to ask us questions. Put your hand up if you think it's a yes on those two questions. Who thinks that marketing is a cost center in an organization? Nobody. That's, okay. Who thinks it's an investment? That's already, I think, a very good step forward. Then why don't we spend the normal amount, a certain percentage of your turnover, on marketing and branding, like any other company? Because most of the brands here, most of the companies, don't even have a PR or marketing or someone, an executive to do something with marketing. It's done by the managing director, or it's done by, or they hire a half-time, a part-time employee to do that and execute that. And they immediately start, okay, we have to place an advertisement. About what? So it has something to do with the professionalism, Martin. A very long explanation, but I hope you see what I'm getting at.
I think there's some good news on the horizon, though, because there are a number of small marketing companies popping up. There's a couple in Southampton. Now, Southampton, as we all know, is the center of super yachting. We have the MCA, Cayman Islands, Lloyd's, all the rest of it. None of this Florida nonsense. But there's lots and lots of little companies in Southampton, particularly service-oriented, and they don't have the budget to have an employee. So what they do is they go to a company, a small company, which is focused on our industry, and they buy a slice of their time. And they're buying into expertise and understanding of the marketplace, and they're getting a more professional job done for them than they could ever do themselves. And I see that as a good trend, picking up on your point on professionalism, Farouk.
I think one of the challenges also sort of goes back to what Farouk said quite a while back, was understanding what your brand represents. Because if there's a plethora of magazines, then surely your brand doesn't fit in, and those magazines or those media outlets have different faces to the public or to the industry, then surely if you understand your brand, it doesn't fit in every one of those. So it's really having the control over your brand, understanding what your brand means, and then, you know, putting the product in the places where it best fits. It goes back again to knowing who your customer is, whether it's on the B2C side or the B2B side, and then placing your product in the environments that make the most sense for you to attract the business and communicate the messages that you really want to.
Mm-hmm. And especially with this industry that we don't have a lot of money, even Feadship. So consolidate. And I have objection with the fact that people say, well, small companies don't have the money. But small companies do have creativity. And the ability to create creativity.
Right.
We get a lot of questions about, for instance, we are giving away hats, for instance. Why are you doing that? You're a yachting company. Why are you giving away so many hats? The only reason, it's part of our branding. And we don't have to do that, but it's part of our branding. Each and every picture that is taken by all these individuals, there's always a hat, a Feadship hat on it. It's all about branding. It doesn't have anything to do with yachting. It has something to do with the brand itself. So you have to go back to what you can, and you have to be willing to invest in marketing and branding. If it's not there, forget it.
Well, folks, we need to wrap up. So real quick, I know in the beginning I said I was going to show you a couple of pictures. I actually have 2 more pictures to show you, and videos, which we promised we would deliver to everybody. My sincere apologies, Farouk. Martin had mentioned the term ghost ships, and I jokingly accused him of checking out my cheat sheets here. I often call these empty decks and lifeless sun pads and sterile galleys ghost ships. So I wanted to show you 2 more pictures. This is a real family. This is not a photo shoot. These are the owners of the Big Blue and their crew and their kids. They are having an absolute blast, as you can tell. This is how they live on their boat. That's how their kids live on the boat. You should be showing this to your clients, not the other way around. Thanks, everybody.